walk into a room. You haven't said a single word yet, but you can already feel it. Eyes narrowing, a subtle stiffness in the air, someone's gaze turning cold, as if you've done them wrong without even knowing their name. Why does that happen? Why do some people seem to dislike you instantly, no matter how polite, respectful, or kind you are? Why do they treat your presence like an intrusion, when all you offered was goodwill? It's one of the most puzzling mysteries of human life, because deep down, we all want to believe that if we treat others well, they will treat us the same. But reality often tells a harsher story. Sometimes hostility appears without warning. Sometimes resentment grows in silence. And sometimes dislike has nothing to do with you at all. That's where Stoicism comes in. The ancient philosophers, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, understood something we still struggle to accept today. People's reactions to you reveal far more about them than about you. Their envy, their insecurities, their hidden fears, all of it spills over in ways that can look like contempt, coldness, even hatred. And if you don't understand these forces, you risk blaming yourself for storms you never created. So let me ask you, how much of your life has been shaped by invisible judgment? How many moments have you walked away wondering, what did I do wrong? How often have you replayed conversations in your mind, searching for mistakes, only to find that the answer is not within your words but within their wounds? This video is not just another discussion, it is a journey into the hidden roots of human resentment, into the toxic games of manipulation, and into the subtle ways being too nice can destroy the respect you deserve. We're going to peel back the layers of psychology and then apply the unshakable wisdom of Stoicism so that you can see clearly, act with strength, and most importantly, protect your peace. Because peace is not passive. Peace is power. And in a world full of noise, gossip, envy, and fragile egos, peace is the sharpest weapon you can wield. Now, before we go deeper, I want to speak directly to you. If this is your first time here, welcome to True Stoic Way, a community where we don't just talk philosophy, we live it. If you've ever felt drained by toxic people, if you've ever struggled to set boundaries, if you've ever wondered why being kind doesn't always earn kindness back, then this channel is your home. Subscribe right now and join thousands of others who are learning how to stand firm in the chaos of modern life. Because here's the truth, the storms outside will never stop. But you can build an inner fortress so strong no wind, no whisper, no glare of envy can shake it. Imagine this with me. A colleague tries to undermine you with rumors. A so-called friend subtly mocks you in front of others. A stranger online spits venom for no reason at all. Most people would react, defend themselves, fight to explain their worth. But not you. You stay calm. You recognize their hostility for what it is, a reflection of their inner chaos, and you walk away with your dignity intact, your peace unbroken. That is Stoicism in practice. That is the strength we are about to uncover together. In the minutes ahead, we will explore 9 surprising reasons why others may resent you, even when you've done nothing wrong. We'll dive into how envy corrodes admiration into hatred, how misunderstandings create walls of suspicion, how gossip spreads like wildfire, and how unmet insecurities project themselves onto innocent targets. We'll confront the painful reality that not everyone will like you, and that's not only acceptable, it's freeing. Then, once we understand the roots of resentment, we'll go deeper into strategy. We'll examine the toxic cycle of manipulation and the single most underestimated response: silence. Silence not as weakness, but as discipline. Silence not as surrender, but as sovereignty over your own mind. You'll learn how toxic people feed on your reactions and how withdrawing your energy is the ultimate act of defiance. Finally, we'll confront a shadow many men carry: the danger of being too nice. We'll talk about Harold, the man who never said no until his health broke. Ted, the man everyone liked but no one respected. And countless others who apologized for existing, avoided conflict at all costs, and tolerated disrespect until their self-worth eroded. You'll see why the world doesn't bow to nice, it bows to clarity, boundaries, and inner strength. And through it all, I'll invite you to reflect, to comment, to share your own story, because Stoicism is not a solitary practice. It grows stronger when we face the truth together. So take a deep breath. Set aside the urge to defend yourself against every glare, every whisper, every rumor. What we're about to uncover could change the way you see every relationship in your life. Are you ready? Let's begin the journey. But before we do, if you haven't yet, hit the subscribe button for True Stoic Way. Not because I need numbers, but because you need a reminder. A reminder that you are not alone in this fight, that there are others learning to rise in silence, to set unshakable boundaries, to walk through life untouchable by the poison of resentment. Join us. Stand with us. And together, let's master the Stoic way. Before we can learn how to respond with strength, we have to ask a deeper question. Where does hatred really come from? It's easy to assume that every cold look, every sharp word, every act of rejection must be the result of something we said or did. But the truth is far less personal and far more revealing. Most of the time, hostility is not about you at all. It's about them. About the battles they fight in silence. About the insecurities they bury so deeply that they leak out as envy, contempt, or bitterness. About the values they cling to, the gossip they spread, the recognition they never received. Hatred, in its rawest form, is often just pain wearing a mask. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, when you wake up, you will meet ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, envious, and unsociable men. But they act this way because they cannot tell good from evil. The emperor understood that other people's negativity flows from their own blindness, not from your worth. So if you've ever wondered why someone seems to despise you without reason, why they resent your success, misjudge your words, or twist your silence, this is where we begin. Not with blame, not with guilt, but with clarity. And in this part of our journey, we'll uncover 9 hidden roots of resentment, 9 forces that quietly poison relationships until hostility blooms. If you've ever carried the weight of someone's unexplained hatred, stay with me. And if this resonates already, consider subscribing to True Stoic Way, because you are not alone, and clarity is the first step to freedom. 1. Envy and jealousy. Have you ever noticed the strange sparkle in someone's eyes when you stumble? Not compassion, not concern, but a flicker of satisfaction, as if your failure somehow soothed their hidden wounds. It's a harsh reality. Not everyone celebrates your victories. Imagine this. You've worked tirelessly for years, showing up early, staying late, grinding through setbacks. Finally, the promotion comes. You walk into the office expecting genuine congratulations. Instead, the room grows colder. Smiles are polite but shallow. Conversations shift when you approach. And slowly, you feel distance growing between you and those you once considered allies. Why? Because your success doesn't just highlight what you've gained. It reflects what others believe they've lost, or never had. Your rise becomes a mirror, forcing them to face their own frustrations, their own missed opportunities, their own sense of inadequacy. That's the corrosive power of envy and jealousy. Left unchecked, admiration mutates into contempt. Respect curdles into resentment. Envy doesn't mean they truly see you. It means they see, in you, the life they wish they had, but fear they'll never achieve. And instead of finding inspiration in your progress, they'd rather pull you down to make their own pain more bearable. The Stoics understood this dynamic well. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "Don't worry about things outside your control. The envy of others belongs entirely to them. It is not your burden to carry, nor your responsibility to fix. You cannot heal another's insecurities by shrinking yourself, and you should never diminish your own light just because it stings someone else's eyes." The lesson here is clear. Their resentment is not about you, it's about them. And while it's tempting to internalize their hostility, to wonder if you should act smaller or quieter, the Stoic path rejects that illusion. You do not control how others feel when they look at you. You only control how firmly you continue walking your path. So keep moving, keep building. Let their envy burn itself out while you remain steady, calm, and untouchable. And now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had someone who seemed happier when you lost and colder when you won? Drop your story in the comments below. Because when we share these truths, we learn not just to endure resentment, but to rise above it. Together, the Stoic way. 2. Misunderstandings. When gaps in communication create hostility. Sometimes it doesn't take betrayal or open conflict to turn a friend into a stranger. Sometimes it takes nothing more than a misplaced glance or a tone of voice that lands the wrong way. 1 second of misalignment, and suddenly, you're an enemy. Think about this. 2 close friends exchange a late-night text. One writes quickly, without much thought, maybe even forgetting an emoji that usually softens their words. The other reads it in silence, staring at the screen, hearing a harsh tone that was never intended. Hours pass. Assumptions form. Hurt feelings grow. By the time they speak again, what was once a friendship full of trust is shadowed by suspicion. All from a single message, misread and misunderstood. That's the hidden danger of communication gaps. Words are fragile vessels. They carry meaning only when both sender and receiver are aligned. When there's a disconnect, when intention and interpretation don't match, the result is often resentment. The speaker thinks, "That's not what I meant." The listener insists, "That's exactly how it sounded." Neither side feels heard, and a wall begins to form. The Stoics recognized how fragile human interaction can be, and they taught patience as the antidote. Epictetus reminded us that we cannot control how others interpret our actions, only how we choose to respond. Active listening, truly seeking to understand before rushing to judgment, is not just a modern skill. It is a Stoic discipline. Because when we pause, when we ask for clarity instead of reacting, we prevent misunderstandings from hardening into hostility. So the takeaway is simple, but powerful. Remain calm. Resist the impulse to assume the worst. If something feels off, ask. If you're unsure, clarify. The small effort of seeking meaning before responding can save years of bitterness. Because here's the truth. Resentment built on misunderstanding is resentment built on sand. It collapses when exposed to honest dialogue. But if we react too quickly, we end up fighting shadows, battles that never needed to exist in the first place. And I want to turn this to you. Have you ever been misunderstood or misjudged because of a word, a text, or a careless tone? If so, you already know the value of listening, the value of slowing down before reacting. Share your story in the comments below, because the more we recognize these moments, the better we become at breaking the cycle and living the Stoic way of patience and clarity. 3. Clash of values. When beliefs become barriers. Sometimes it's not your actions that push people away. It's the values you carry, the beliefs you live by. You don't even have to speak them out loud. Simply living differently can be enough to create distance. Picture this. A family gathers for dinner. Around the table, traditions run deep. Expectations about career, marriage, and how life should be lived. But one member has chosen a different path. Perhaps it's an unconventional job, a partner who doesn't fit the mold, or a lifestyle that doesn't bow to tradition. Suddenly, conversations feel heavier. Small remarks carry hidden judgment. And before long, what should be a place of love and acceptance feels like a battlefield of values. This is the quiet war of clashing beliefs. When someone feels their values are challenged, it doesn't just touch their opinions, it threatens their identity. To them, your different choices aren't just different. They feel like an attack on everything they've built their life upon. And when people feel their identity is under siege, resentment grows quickly. What starts as a disagreement about lifestyle can harden into disdain, suspicion, even hostility. The Stoics understood this deeply. Epictetus once said, "Every man is the product of his own thoughts, his own upbringing, his own surroundings." In other words, people hold on to their values because they are shaped by the environments that raise them. What seems rigid or unfair to you may simply be the natural extension of someone else's lived experience. So what is the Stoic way when values clash? Not to fight endlessly, not to impose your truth on others, but to recognize difference with clarity and patience. To remember that just as you have the right to live by your beliefs, others have the right to cling to theirs. Respect doesn't mean agreement. It means accepting that multiple perspectives can coexist without one destroying the other. The lesson here is clear. Instead of wasting your energy trying to win every argument, invest that energy in building your own life with integrity. Live your values so consistently that they don't need defending. Let your actions speak louder than your debates. Now I want to turn it to you. Have you ever lost closeness with someone, not because of what you did, but because of what you believed? Have differences in values ever built walls in your own relationships? Share your experience below. Because in facing these truths together, we learn to replace conflict with respect and to walk the Stoic path of tolerance and strength. 4. Rumors and gossip. The poison of false stories. Rumors travel faster than truth, and more often than not, they kill it before it has a chance to speak. Imagine a man at work. For years, he's been steady, disciplined, respected. Then one day, whispers begin. Someone says he cut corners. Another suggests he's only successful because of favoritism. The rumors spread quietly from hallway to break room until his reputation is no longer his own. Colleagues look at him differently. Trust weakens. And the worst part? None of it was true. His image was destroyed not by his actions, but by someone else's words. This is the devastating power of gossip. Like a virus, it spreads rapidly, feeding on curiosity and the thrill of forbidden knowledge. People don't pause to verify. They pass it along because it's entertaining, because it confirms their biases, or simply because it makes them feel significant for holding insider information. By the time the truth emerges, if it ever does, the damage is already done. The Stoics warned us of this trap. Reputation, though valuable, is not fully within our control. What is within our control is integrity. Marcus Aurelius lived as if every action could be exposed to the public eye, because to a Stoic, the only true shield against falsehood is a life lived transparently. If your character is unshakable, if your choices align with virtue, rumors may wound your image, but they cannot corrupt your reality. So the Stoic response is clear. You cannot stop people from talking. You cannot seal every mouth or chase down every falsehood, but you can choose not to be destroyed by them. You can remain anchored in truth, refusing to let lies dictate your peace. Integrity is the shield. Patience is the sword. In the end, falsehood is fragile. It crumbles under the weight of consistency, while truth stands firm over time. The lesson is simple. Control what you can, your actions, your honesty, your virtue. Release what you cannot, the whispers, the slander, the opinions of those too careless to seek truth. When you live with clarity, you won't need to fight every rumor. Your life itself becomes the answer. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been the target of gossip? Have lies ever shaped the way others saw you, even when you did nothing wrong? If so, you know the sting, and you know why Stoic integrity matters. Comment yes. If you believe, as I do, that in the end, truth will always find its voice. 5. Insecurities and projection. When others dump their fears on you, when someone hates you, sometimes they aren't really seeing you at all. Sometimes they're only seeing the weakest parts of themselves reflected back in your success. Picture this. A man feels stuck in his career. He compares himself constantly to others, but each comparison leaves him smaller, more insecure. Then a colleague, driven, disciplined, confident, earns recognition. Instead of using that as inspiration, the insecure man lashes out. He mocks, he undermines, he spreads subtle negativity. His hostility has little to do with the colleague and everything to do with the battle raging inside himself. This is projection, a psychological defense mechanism where a person dumps their own insecurities onto someone else. Unable to face their fears directly, they attack the one who represents what they lack. Seneca observed this centuries ago. What we see in others is often what we cannot bear in ourselves. An insecure mind projects outward, turning personal failure into misplaced resentment. The danger is that if you don't recognize projection, you'll start to take it personally. You'll internalize their negativity and question your worth. But the Stoic response is to see clearly. Their anger is not about your achievement. It's about their inadequacy. Their insults are not revelations about your character. They are echoes of their own wounds. The takeaway is this: when you become a target of someone else's projection, step back. Don't fight shadows. Don't waste energy defending yourself against battles that don't belong to you. Recognize the hostility for what it is, a mirror of their struggle, not an indictment of your value. And remember, peace is preserved not by silencing every critic, but by refusing to let their chaos rent space in your mind. If you want to learn how to hold on to that peace, even when others attack you without reason, subscribe to True Stoic Way. Because here, we practice the art of resilience, building a fortress of calm so strong, no projection, no insult, no misplaced resentment can break through. 6. Lack of empathy. When people fail to see beyond themselves. When someone refuses to step into your shoes, every action you take can be twisted, every word misinterpreted. Without empathy, even kindness can look like manipulation, and silence can look like contempt. Imagine a marriage strained not by betrayal but by a lack of listening. One partner speaks, hoping to be heard, while the other is too busy defending, judging, or dismissing. Over time, conversations turn into battlegrounds. Small frustrations harden into resentment, not because the love isn't there, but because empathy is missing. The same can happen in friendships. A lack of true listening creates a quiet distance, a widening gap that no amount of surface talk can close. People who lack empathy see the world only through their own lens. They don't pause to ask, what might this person be feeling? What might they mean? Instead, they assume. They project motives. They jump to conclusions. And in doing so, they create a distorted version of you, one that bears little resemblance to who you really are. The Stoics recognized the importance of compassion, but they also drew a sharp distinction. Compassion doesn't mean losing yourself in someone else's emotions. It means acknowledging their perspective while staying rooted in your own clarity. Marcus Aurelius practiced this balance daily, to meet others with understanding, but not to surrender his peace to their ignorance. The takeaway is simple. Don't expect everyone to understand you. Some people lack the tools, the patience, or even the willingness to see beyond themselves. And that's not your burden to carry. Your task, as a Stoic, is to understand yourself so clearly that others' misjudgments cannot shake you. So when you encounter someone who misreads your silence, who twists your intentions, who cannot or will not empathize, stay grounded. Know that their lack of empathy says more about their limits than about your worth. If you agree that empathy is the key to stronger relationships and greater peace, leave a heart in the comments. Because together, by practicing empathy and clarity, we can build a community that sees more deeply and lives more wisely. 7. Rivalry, when competition turns into resentment. Sometimes people aren't driven by the desire to win, they're driven by the desperate need to see you lose. Think of a workplace where competition should inspire growth. At first, it feels healthy. You and a colleague push each other, aiming higher, working harder. But then something shifts. Instead of celebrating progress, they start undermining you. They spread subtle doubts about your abilities. They withhold information that could help you. They don't just want to get ahead, they want to pull you back. What began as friendly rivalry has turned into sabotage. This is the danger of rivalry when it slips past healthy boundaries. Competition can be fuel when it motivates us to reach beyond our limits. But when insecurity or ego takes over, competition mutates into obsession. The focus shifts from self-improvement to destruction. Instead of striving to build, a rival consumed by resentment plots to see you fall. Marcus Aurelius gave us the antidote in a single truth. Another's success does not diminish yours. The Stoic perspective reminds us that life is not a zero-sum game. There is space enough for everyone to grow, enough victories for everyone to claim. When we forget this, rivalry poisons the spirit, transforming ambition into hatred. The Stoic response, then, is not to match hostility with hostility. It is to rise above the obsession with comparison. See your rival not as an enemy, but as a mirror, showing you where you can sharpen your discipline. If they burn energy plotting your downfall, you burn yours building your strength. If they sabotage, you stay steady in integrity. If they compete destructively, you compete only with yourself. yesterday's version of who you were. The takeaway is clear. Rivalry reveals character. For some, it becomes bitterness. For you, it can become growth. You cannot control the envy in another's heart, but you can control the way you channel the energy of competition. Let it harden you, not with hatred, but with resilience. Now let me ask you, has someone in your life ever turned competition into hostility? A colleague, a friend, even a family member? Share your story below, because when we recognize these patterns together, we strip rivalry of its poison and transform it into power. 8. Social expectations. When society turns difference into rebellion, live differently, and you become a thorn in the side of those who bow blindly to tradition. Picture this. In a family where generations have followed the same path, perhaps a stable career in law, medicine, or the family business, you decide to break away. Maybe you want to be an artist, an entrepreneur, or pursue a calling that doesn't fit the mold. You're not hurting anyone. You're simply choosing your own road. Yet suddenly, you're branded the rebel. Family dinners turn tense. Relatives whisper. The weight of disappointment hangs in the air. Why? Not because you are wrong, but because you dared to be different. Your choice forces others to confront the rigidity of their own thinking. It unsettles them because your courage exposes their conformity. Instead of asking themselves, could I live differently too? They choose the easier path, judgment. They resent you not for your mistakes, but for your refusal to live within their lines. The Stoics would say this is the very heart of authentic living. To live according to nature, as Marcus Aurelius wrote, is to live in alignment with your own reason, your own values, not in blind obedience to the crowd. Authenticity takes courage, because stepping away from social expectations often invites scorn. But as Epictetus taught, freedom is found not in pleasing others, but in living true to yourself. The takeaway is simple. The world will always try to box you in, to punish you for stepping outside the script. But the Stoic path calls you to embrace your individuality with calm courage. True peace is not found in conformity. It is found in the quiet confidence of knowing you are walking your path, not someone else's. So if you are living a life that looks different from what others expected, if you've chosen authenticity over approval, know that you are not alone. Subscribe to True Stoic Way to find strength in a community that celebrates courage, resilience, and the freedom to live on your own terms. 9. Lack of recognition. When being overlooked turns into resentment, there's a special kind of pain that cuts deeper than failure. The pain of giving your all, year after year, only to be forgotten. Picture the employee who shows up early, stays late, and carries responsibilities no one else wants. He doesn't complain. He doesn't seek attention. He just delivers. Yet when the time for recognition arrives, promotions, awards, or even simple words of thanks, he's overlooked. Someone else, louder or more visible, takes the spotlight. Over time, his dedication curdles into bitterness. Not because he stopped caring about the work, but because he stopped feeling seen. This is the quiet wound of unacknowledged effort. Human beings crave recognition. It's part of our wiring. We want to know our contributions matter, that our sacrifices are noticed, and when they're not, resentment builds in silence, often against those who seem to receive the praise we longed for. But the Stoics warned us about building our self-worth on something so fragile. Recognition from others is never fully in our control. People forget, they misjudge, they withhold. What is in your control is the integrity of your work, the clarity of your character, and the pride you take in fulfilling your duty. As Epictetus taught, freedom lies in focusing only on what belongs to you, not the applause of the crowd, but the discipline of your own choices. The takeaway is this: your value is not defined by who notices you. Recognition is sweet, but it's not essential. You are not less worthy because others failed to say thank you. You are not less significant because someone else stood in the spotlight. What matters is whether you lived with virtue, whether you gave your best, whether you stayed true to yourself. That kind of recognition, the kind you give yourself, is untouchable. So the next time you feel overlooked, remember, Your worth does not shrink because someone else failed to acknowledge it. Stand firm in the truth that your effort has meaning, whether the world applauds or not. Have you ever been in this situation, giving everything and receiving nothing in return? If so, comment, "I see myself," below. Because here, in true Stoic way, we remind each other that value comes not from applause, but from the strength of the soul. When we step back and look at these 9 roots of resentment, a clear truth emerges. Hatred is rarely about you. It is about them. Their envy, their misunderstandings, their rigid values, their gossip, their insecurities, their lack of empathy, their rivalry, their fear of difference, their hunger for recognition. These are mirrors reflecting their own inner struggles. You just happen to stand in the light that exposes what they cannot face. The Stoic lens teaches us to see this not as a sentence against our character, but as a lesson in human nature. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that he would encounter the envious, the arrogant, and the hostile, but also that their behavior flowed from ignorance, not malice. Hatred, when seen clearly, is not a verdict. It is a teacher. It shows us where others are weak, and it shows us where we must be strong. So the next time someone greets you with coldness or contempt, pause before blaming yourself. Ask instead, what is this revealing about them? And how can I respond with clarity rather than reaction? This shift of perspective is the essence of Stoicism, choosing to see hostility not as poison to swallow, but as a lesson to learn from, and then to walk away from with dignity and tact. If you recognize any of these reasons in your own relationships, I invite you to share your story in the comments. Because here, in true Stoic way, we don't practice philosophy in isolation. We grow by seeing our experiences reflected in one another, and by choosing the higher path together. Now that we've uncovered the roots of resentment, the real question emerges. What do you do when you're face to face with it? You know, the look, the dismissive tone, the carefully chosen words meant to sting. Maybe it's envy dressed as sarcasm, gossip whispered loud enough for you to hear, or a passive-aggressive silence that speaks louder than insults. In those moments, every instinct in you wants to react, to explain yourself, to defend your worth, to fight for fairness. And that's exactly how you lose. Because when you react to people who thrive on chaos, you feed them. When you explain yourself to someone who never intended to understand, you hand them power. When you stay, hoping they'll eventually change, you chain yourself to a hope that will only drain you. Most people live trapped in this cycle, arguing, justifying, pleading for recognition, only to find themselves exhausted and no closer to peace. But Stoicism shows us another way. A sharper, quieter weapon that few dare to use: strategic silence. Silence is not surrender. It is not weakness. It is discipline. It is the art of refusing to play a game designed to make you lose. The Stoics believed that mastery begins not with controlling others, but with controlling your own responses. When you withhold your energy from those who seek to provoke you, you reclaim the one thing they cannot touch: your peace. So as we step into this next part of our journey, I want you to consider this. Every conflict has 2 players, and the moment you choose silence, the game collapses. That is the Stoic response. That is how you turn resentment into irrelevance. If you've ever felt stuck in an endless cycle of arguments and explanations, this is your moment. Hit subscribe to True Stoic Way now, because what you're about to learn could be the key to finally walking free. 1. Dangerous hope, the trap of waiting for people to change. They've hurt you more times than you can count. They've lied, disrespected, ignored, or manipulated you. And yet, you stayed. Why? Because of one word: hope. Hope that one day they'll see your worth. Hope that your patience will inspire change. Hope that the love you pour out will finally awaken love in return. It's a seductive thought. If I just endure a little longer, they'll come around. But here's the brutal truth. That kind of hope is not strength. It's a trap. Imagine someone caught in a toxic relationship. Every cycle is the same. The apologies come, the promises follow, and for a moment, things seem better. Then the disrespect returns. The cycle repeats. Deep down, they know nothing has changed. But hope whispers, maybe next time. Years slip away in this dangerous waiting game, not because the toxic person is changing, but because the victim refuses to accept they won't. Psychologists call this intermittent reinforcement. The occasional good moment keeps you hooked, like a gambler chasing the next win. But Stoicism strips away the illusion. The Stoics warned us not to build our peace on outcomes beyond our control. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself every morning that he would meet arrogant, envious, and hostile people, and that wishing them to be different was pointless. The world does not bend to your hopes. People do not transform just because you suffer long enough. That's why this kind of hope is dangerous. It doesn't free you, it chains you. It convinces you to tolerate mistreatment today in exchange for a fantasy tomorrow. And in doing so, it robs you of the one thing Stoicism demands you protect above all else: your present peace. The Stoic answer is simple but not easy. Let go of the hope that belongs to someone else's choices. Their growth, their change, their willingness to treat you with respect, those are not in your control. What is in your control is the courage to stop waiting, to accept reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. The takeaway is clear. Abandoning dangerous hope is not giving up, it's waking up. It's the first step to reclaiming your freedom, to stop gambling your peace on someone else's transformation, and to start investing it in your own growth. So I want to ask you directly, have you ever waited for someone to change, only to watch the same patterns repeat? If so, you know the pain of dangerous hope. Write the word "enough" in the comments below. Let it be your declaration that you will no longer wait for illusions, you will choose freedom, the Stoic way. 2. Explaining equals handing power. Every word you speak feels like self-defense. You think, if I can just explain clearly enough, they'll finally understand. But here's the reality. They're not listening to understand. They're listening to reload. Have you ever been in that situation? You try to explain the truth, your intentions, your perspective, the facts as they happened. But instead of clarity, you end up more entangled. Somehow, the other person twists your explanation into an admission of guilt. Suddenly, you're not defending yourself anymore. You're on trial for crimes you never committed. This is the hidden danger of over-explaining. Every time you pour your energy into justifying yourself to someone who has already decided not to hear you, you hand them control. They now dictate the battlefield. They take your words, bend them, throw them back, and leave you drained. You walk away wondering how you ended up apologizing for something you didn't do. The Stoics warned us against this trap. Seneca wrote, "He who looks outside dreams. He who looks inside awakens." When you seek validation through explanation, you're looking outward, chasing approval that may never come. But when you turn inward, you realize your integrity doesn't require their understanding. Your worth isn't up for debate. Your truth doesn't become less true just because someone refuses to accept it. And here's the paradox. The more you explain, the weaker you appear. To the manipulator, every extra word is evidence that you doubt yourself. Every attempt to persuade them is proof they've hooked you into their game. Your explanations don't resolve the conflict, they prolong it. So what's the Stoic response? Preserve your energy. Stop handing over power by begging to be understood. Not everyone deserves access to your clarity. Some people will never listen because their goal isn't truth, it's control. And when you recognize that, silence becomes your shield. The takeaway is liberating. You don't need to explain yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. Speak your truth once if necessary, then let silence do the rest. Integrity doesn't argue, it endures. If you've ever found yourself exhausted from over-explaining, I want you to pause right here. Ask yourself, who benefits when I hand away my peace this way? It's not you, and it never will be. If this resonates, if you've seen yourself trapped in endless explanations, subscribe to True Stoic Way. Here we practice the discipline of silence, the art of keeping your energy, your clarity, and your dignity intact, no matter how loud the other side becomes. 3. The cycle of manipulation. How toxic people feed on your reactions. Some people don't want peace, they want control. To them, conflict isn't a problem to be solved, it's fuel. Your reactions are their nourishment. Every time you raise your voice, Every time you defend yourself, every time you explain, you're feeding the very cycle that drains you. Psychologists call this psychological inflation. Toxic people grow larger, louder, more dominant every time you allow them to move you emotionally. They don't need your agreement. They don't even need to be right. They just need to know they can provoke you, because your reaction confirms their power. Think about someone who knows your weak spots. Maybe it's the coworker who always questions your competence in front of others. Maybe it's the friend who delivers backhanded compliments that sting more than insults. Or maybe it's a partner who knows exactly which words to use to spark guilt or shame. Notice how precise they are? That's not an accident. It's calculated. They've studied you. They know which buttons to press. And when you react, the cycle spins again. Here's how it works. They provoke. You react. They twist your reaction into justification. You feel drained. They feel validated. And then it repeats, over and over, until you feel trapped in a loop you can't escape. The Stoics saw through this dynamic long before modern psychology gave it a name. Their wisdom was simple. If someone thrives on your reaction, stop feeding them. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself not to hand over his peace to the arrogance or hostility of others. Seneca went further, urging us to recognize that our silence can be stronger than any argument, because silence denies them the one thing they crave: our energy. The takeaway is this: they are only strong when you give them strength. The moment you refuse to react, the cycle begins to starve. Silence is not weakness here. It is strategy. It is the refusal to play a rigged game. When you don't give them fuel, their fire burns out on its own. So the next time someone pushes your buttons, pause, breathe. Ask yourself, am I about to hand them power, or am I about to reclaim mine? That single choice determines whether the cycle continues or collapses. And now, I want to bring this back to you. Comment below with one habit you've noticed in toxic people. Something they do to bait you into reacting. Let's name these tactics together. Because when the community sees them clearly, we strip them of their hidden power. 4. Silence is discipline, not weakness. The world thinks silence is weakness. Stoicism calls it discipline. Most people equate silence with surrender. They see it as backing down, as having nothing to say, as admitting defeat. But the Stoic sees silence differently. Silence is restraint sharpened into strategy. It is not the absence of power. It is power in disguise. Take Elena, for example. She spent years in a cycle of endless arguments with her sister. Every trivial issue became a spark. Every spark ignited a storm. Elena would try to explain, to clarify, to smooth things over. But somehow, she always walked away more drained, more resentful, more confused. Her words never built peace. They only fed the fire. Then one day, Elena did something different. She stopped explaining. She stopped defending herself. She stopped giving her sister access to her energy. When the accusations came, she met them with calm silence. When the bait was thrown, she refused to bite. And just like that, the cycle collapsed. The manipulation no longer worked, not because her sister had changed, but because Elena had. Or consider Morgan. For years, she tried to reason with a partner who twisted every word. She wrote long messages, pleaded for understanding, tried to prove her loyalty. But nothing changed. Until one day, she didn't send the message. She didn't answer the call. She went quiet. Not out of exhaustion, but out of resolve. And in that silence, she found freedom. For the first time, she realized the truth. He never wanted healing. He only wanted control. And silence took that control away. This is intentional silence. It's not about running from conflict. It's about refusing to fuel a conflict that has no end. It's about choosing not to waste breath proving your worth to someone who profits from doubting it. Silence here is not passivity. It is an act of war, disguised as stillness. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. They taught that self-mastery is the highest form of power, and silence is one of its sharpest weapons. Words can be twisted, but silence cannot. Arguments can be prolonged, but silence ends them. When you go silent with intention, you deny manipulators the one thing they crave: proof that they still control your emotions. The takeaway is simple but profound. Silence, when chosen with clarity, is not weakness. It is strength refined. It is not hiding. It is refusing to perform. It is the ability to walk away with dignity intact, leaving others to wrestle with their own noise. So the next time someone provokes you, remember this. Silence doesn't mean you've lost. It means you've chosen not to play. And that decision, quiet as it seems, may be the loudest declaration of strength you'll ever make. If you believe that silence can be a weapon, comment crossed swords below. Because in a world that mistakes noise for strength, your silence may be the sharpest strike of all. 5. Psychological sovereignty, guarding the mind against intruders. Don't let anyone rent space in your mind without paying for it. Yet that's exactly what happens when you allow toxic people to linger in your thoughts long after the moment has passed. You replay the insult, rehearse the argument, analyze the look they gave you. Hours, days, sometimes years later, you're still furnishing rooms in your head for someone who doesn't deserve to live there. Think about it. A stranger makes a cutting remark and you carry it home like luggage. A coworker undermines you in a meeting and you spend the night drafting speeches you'll never give. An old friend betrays you and you wake up months later still thinking about the moment you realized the truth. They've moved on, but you haven't. They live rent-free in your mind, rearranging the furniture of your peace. The Stoics warned us about this trap. Marcus Aurelius wrote about not giving others the power to disturb your inner citadel. And Seneca might have put it best. Don't let them rearrange furniture in a room they don't own. Your mind is your fortress. No one else has the right to redecorate it with their chaos unless you hand them the keys. This is the essence of psychological sovereignty. Choosing who gets access to your thoughts, your emotions, your inner life. Without it, anyone can plant themselves in your mental space, draining your energy long after the actual encounter has ended. With it, you decide. You choose which voices stay and which are evicted. Consider this. Someone insults you. You can let the words echo endlessly, or you can treat them like noise. Unwelcome, unworthy, beneath your attention. The insult says more about their character than about yours. And if you refuse to give it a permanent place in your mind, it disappears as quickly as it arrived. The takeaway is clear. You can't control what people say, but you can control whether you allow their words to live inside you. Psychological sovereignty means guarding your mental real estate fiercely, because every moment you spend dwelling on someone else's chaos is a moment stolen from your peace. So let me ask you, who's living rent-free in your mind right now? Who are you still arguing with in silence, even though the conversation ended long ago? It's time to reclaim your sovereignty. Write in the comments, "I claim my mind." Let it be your declaration that you are done giving space to people who haven't earned it, and that your inner world belongs to you, and only you. 6. Practical application, silence in daily life. The philosophy is powerful, but let's get practical. How do you apply silence in the real world, at work, in your family, in your closest relationships? Because knowing the principle is one thing. Living it, especially when emotions run high, is another. Imagine you're in a meeting. A coworker takes a shot at you, questioning your competence, throwing in a sarcastic jab, trying to rattle you in front of others. Your instinct is to snap back, to defend yourself, to prove them wrong. But stop. Pause. Observe. Don't react. Let the silence stretch. Often, the weight of their words collapses under its own emptiness. Instead of matching their hostility, you let them reveal their character while you preserve yours. Later, when the heat has cooled, you can address the issue calmly or let your consistent work speak louder than any defense. That's Stoic silence at work. Discipline over impulse, strength over noise. Now picture a family dinner. Traditions run deep, and so do opinions. Maybe your parents or elders criticize the way you live, the choices you've made, the beliefs you hold. The temptation is to argue back, to prove your path is valid. But sometimes, silence is the higher ground. Not the silence of surrender, but of strength. The kind that refuses to escalate conflict that cannot be won. You listen. You breathe. You let their words hang in the air without letting them pierce your peace. Later, you keep living your truth consistently, and over time, it speaks louder than any argument could. That's Stoic silence in family life, choosing peace without betraying yourself. Finally, consider your closest relationship. Maybe your partner knows exactly which buttons to push. They sigh at the right time, play the victim, twist your words until you feel guilty for things you never did. If you engage, you're trapped. You explain, you argue, you justify, and they win, because the game was never about truth. It was about control. The Stoic answer? Don't play. Don't hand over your energy. Let silence break the cycle. When you stop reacting, the manipulation loses its power. You're no longer a participant in their emotional theater. You've left the stage entirely. This is where Stoicism cuts through the noise. It tells you to focus only on what's in your control. Your thoughts, your choices, your responses. You cannot dictate what others say or do, but you can decide whether you'll give them your energy. Silence is how you practice that decision in real time. The takeaway is clear. Silence isn't just theory. It's a tool you can use everywhere, at work, at home, in love. Each time you choose not to react, you strengthen your inner fortress. Each time you withhold your energy from chaos, you reclaim a piece of yourself. And now, I'll turn it to you. Would you like me to create a separate video diving deeper into how silence works specifically in romantic relationships, where emotions run highest and manipulation cuts deepest? If so, comment yes below. Because the Stoic way isn't abstract philosophy, it's a daily practice. And the more we share, the stronger we all become. 7. Reclaiming energy. Freedom without closure. You don't need closure. You don't need an apology. You don't even need them to admit what they did. What you need is peace. Yet so many people spend their lives waiting for the call that never comes, the apology that never arrives, the explanation that would finally make it all make sense. They believe that if they just hold on long enough, the person who hurt them will one day show up with the words that fix everything. But that day rarely comes. And even when it does, it often changes nothing. Imagine someone who was betrayed by a close friend. The years pass, yet they still replay the betrayal in their mind, waiting for some moment of accountability. They imagine the friend admitting guilt, explaining why it happened, asking for forgiveness. But the call never comes. And in the waiting, life slips by. Energy drained, peace delayed, dignity put on hold. The person who caused the pain is long gone, but the one who was hurt remains shackled to a door that will never open. This is the illusion of closure, the belief that someone else's words can set you free. But in reality, closure doesn't come from them. It comes from you. The Stoics would remind us that freedom is found not in controlling others, but in controlling ourselves. Waiting for an apology means surrendering your peace to someone else's will. Choosing peace without it means reclaiming your power. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we should expect betrayal, arrogance, envy, and hostility, but never let these rob us of our reason or our calm. He knew what many forget. You are not entitled to closure. You are entitled to freedom. And freedom begins the moment you decide to stop waiting. The takeaway is this. Reclaiming energy is not about winning the argument, proving your point, or hearing the words, "I'm sorry." It's about refusing to let unfinished business finish you. It's about choosing peace now, instead of bargaining with a future that may never come. So let me ask you, who are you still waiting on? Whose apology have you been holding out for? And what could you reclaim if you stopped waiting today? If you're ready to stop giving your energy to the past, if you're ready to close the door yourself, then reclaim your peace right now. And if this message resonates with you, hit like so that it can reach more people who need to hear it. Because peace doesn't come from them. It begins with you. Silence through the Stoic lens is never cowardice. It is not running away. It is a strategy, a shield for the mind, a discipline for the soul, a weapon in disguise. By now, we've seen the traps that drain our energy, the dangerous hope that keeps us waiting for someone who will never change, the endless explanations that hand our power away, the manipulation cycles that thrive on our reactions, the lies that tell us silence is weakness when in truth it is the purest form of restraint. the failure to guard our own minds, leaving room for intruders who do not deserve a place there, and the exhaustion that comes from chasing closure instead of choosing peace. The Stoic way breaks each of these chains. To let go of false hope is to free yourself from illusions. To stop explaining is to keep your strength. To refuse reaction is to starve manipulation. To guard your mind is to reclaim sovereignty. To choose peace over closure is to finally rest in freedom. This is the discipline of silence. Not the silence of submission, but the silence of mastery. It is the refusal to be dragged into battles that cannot be won. The decision to stand firm while chaos burns itself out. In silence, you discover that power was never in their words. It was always in your response. So I ask you now, who is the toxic person still living in your mind? Who are you still arguing with in silence, long after the moment has passed? Write their name in the comments below, and then let it go. Release them from your thoughts. That is the first step in reclaiming your psychological sovereignty. The enemy isn't always outside. Sometimes the real threat is closer, hidden not in another person's hostility, but in our own softness, our own inability to draw the line. Because here's the truth. It's not always the attacks of others that rob us of respect. Sometimes it's our own willingness to be too nice. Niceness is not the same as virtue. A Stoic man is not someone who bends to every request, apologizes for existing, or sacrifices his boundaries just to be liked. A Stoic man is someone who lives with clarity, guided by principle, not by the fleeting approval of others. Virtue is strength. Niceness without boundaries is weakness dressed up as kindness. And when the world senses weakness, it doesn't admire it, it exploits it. Think about it. How many times have you said yes when your heart screamed no? How many times have you swallowed disrespect because you didn't want to cause conflict? How many times have you explained yourself endlessly, hoping others would finally understand, only to walk away feeling smaller? Each moment chips away at your dignity, until one day you realize you've become invisible in your own life. The Stoics would never call that humility. They would call it surrender. And surrender is not what wins respect. Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, they all lived by the principle that boundaries are not selfish, they are necessary. To live without them is to invite contempt. So as we enter this part of our journey, we're going to expose the silent dangers of being too nice. We'll uncover 6 patterns of behavior that drain your strength, weaken your presence, and invite disrespect. And more importantly, we'll explore how the Stoic mindset can free you from them, replacing softness with strength and approval-seeking with dignity. If you've ever felt dismissed, overlooked, or treated as less simply because you tried to be too kind, then this part is for you. Subscribe to True Stoic Way, because here, you'll learn how to be respected not for pleasing everyone, but for standing firm in who you are. 1. Can't say no. Harold's story. Do you know someone who always says yes, even when their eyes are screaming no? That was Harold. He was the dependable one, the man everyone turned to when they needed help, extra hours, a favor no one else wanted to take. At first, it looked noble, his willingness to carry more, to never refuse, to always be available. But beneath the surface, Harold was unraveling. Every yes to someone else became a silent no to himself. He missed family dinners. He skipped doctor's appointments. He sacrificed rest, health, and joy. And when his body finally rebelled, when his heart stopped giving gentle warnings and collapsed under the weight of exhaustion, Harold realized too late that all his yeses had stolen the only life he had. This is the hidden danger of being unable to say no. It doesn't just drain your time, it drains your power. The fear of disappointing others, of being judged as selfish, slowly eats away at your ability to decide for yourself. And once you lose that, you're not living your own life anymore. You're living everyone else's. The Stoics understood the gravity of choice. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." In other words, integrity requires the courage to say no. Saying no isn't cruelty, it's clarity. It's refusing to betray your values, your health, and your dignity just to meet the endless demands of others. Think about it. Every yes carries a cost. If you agree to stay late at work, that's a no to time with your family. If you agree to lend money you can't afford to lose, that's a no to your own security. Every decision is a trade. The problem isn't helping others. The problem is forgetting that your well-being belongs on the scale too. The takeaway is simple. Refusing is not selfish. It is self-respect. It is the refusal to let guilt, fear, or manipulation dictate your choices. When you say no to what drains you, you say yes to what truly matters: your health, your peace, your integrity. So let me ask you, have you been saying yes too often? Have you been giving away pieces of yourself to keep others happy? If so, it's time to practice the discipline of refusal. Because only when you learn to say no can your yes regain its meaning. If you're ready to reclaim your power, drop the word no in the comments. Let it be your first act of strength, the first step toward a life lived on your terms, the Stoic way. Apologizing for existing. Have you ever apologized just for being there? It sounds absurd, but you've seen it before. The person who whispers sorry before they speak, as if their words are already a burden. The one who apologizes for asking a simple question, for taking up space in a crowded room, for existing in a world that should never demand an apology for presence. Over time, this constant sorry becomes more than words. It becomes a way of living invisible. Imagine someone in a conversation who begins every thought with an apology. Sorry, but can I say something? Sorry, I didn't mean to bother you. Eventually, the room stops hearing the content of their words and starts hearing only the apology. The message becomes clear. I don't believe my voice belongs here. And when you broadcast that belief long enough, people start to believe it too. You vanish, not because you are unworthy, but because you've trained the world to treat you as if you are. This is the quiet tragedy of self-erasure. Every unnecessary apology chips away at your presence until you no longer stand in people's minds as a person of value. You're just background noise. And what begins as politeness turns into a habit of self-denial, the belief that you must shrink to be accepted. The Stoics would call this a distortion of humility. True humility is knowing your place in the larger order of the universe, not denying that you have one. A Stoic man does not vanish. He stands firm, present, rooted in his principles. Silence can be powerful when it is a deliberate choice, a refusal to waste words, a discipline of restraint. But silence born from insecurity is not strength. It is surrender. The takeaway here is essential. Do not apologize for existing. You have the right to be here, to speak, to take up space. Your worth is not conditional on constant self-deprecation. Stop leading with an apology and start leading with clarity. Speak when you have something true to say, and let that truth stand without apology. So I'll ask you, have you fallen into this trap? Have you found yourself whispering sorry when you did nothing wrong, apologizing for simply being? If so, it's time to break the habit. And here's how we do it together. Leave A in the comments if you're ready to stop saying sorry for existing. Let it serve as your reminder, and ours, that you are worthy of presence, of voice, of being here without apology. Because living the Stoic way doesn't mean disappearing. It means standing with quiet strength, unashamed to exist. 3. Avoiding conflict. You call it keeping the peace, but others call it what it really is: weakness. It starts small. A colleague makes a dismissive comment in a meeting and you let it slide. A friend cancels plans for the third time and you smile, saying, "It's okay." A partner takes a jab at you in front of others and you laugh it off to avoid awkwardness. Each moment feels harmless, just a choice to let things go, to avoid unnecessary tension. But what you're really doing is teaching people how far they can go before you push back. And the more you avoid conflict, the further they will push. Imagine this in the workplace. A manager piles extra tasks on your desk without acknowledgement. The first time, you say nothing because you don't want to seem uncooperative. The second time, you force a smile to avoid tension. By the third, it's become the expectation. You're the one who will always carry the extra weight. What began as one act of avoidance becomes a permanent role you never agreed to play. Or think about it in relationships. A partner makes a cutting remark. You tell yourself, it's not worth a fight. But when the remark becomes a pattern, your silence no longer protects harmony. it validates disrespect. Your partner learns not just that they can hurt you without consequence, but that you will silently accept it. Avoidance turns into permission. The Stoics understood peace differently from the way most people do. Peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the presence of boundaries. Real peace is not about swallowing every slight, but about protecting the dignity that makes relationships truly balanced. Marcus Aurelius faced constant criticism as emperor, yet he didn't waste energy on petty arguments. He drew clear lines for himself, living by principle rather than by fear of tension. Here's the truth. Avoiding conflict may feel safe in the moment, but it costs you respect in the long run. The discomfort of setting a boundary today prevents the erosion of your dignity tomorrow. Every time you speak with clarity, calm, firm, unapologetic, you reinforce your worth. Every time you avoid, you quietly surrender it. The takeaway is this: don't mistake avoidance for harmony. Short-term discomfort is a small price to pay for long-term respect. The Stoic path calls you not to be reckless with conflict, but to face it with calm strength when boundaries are crossed. So let me ask you, do you agree that avoiding confrontation can sometimes be more dangerous than the conflict itself? Comment yes below if you've learned that lesson the hard way, because here, we grow stronger by naming the truth and then living it. For need to be liked, Ted's story. He was the guy everyone liked, but no one respected. That was Ted. At every gathering, every office party, every dinner with friends, Ted was the nice guy. He laughed at every joke, even the ones aimed at him. He never disagreed, never voiced a strong opinion, never set a boundary. People described him as easygoing, pleasant, and agreeable. And yet, when the night ended, no one really remembered Ted. No one trusted him with responsibility. No one saw him as a man of weight or substance. Why? Because in his desperate effort to be liked, Ted had erased himself. His personality became whatever others wanted it to be. His words were molded to please. His silence was meant to avoid offense. He thought he was building bridges, but in reality, he was dissolving his identity. The man who lives only for approval slowly disappears, leaving behind a hollow mask that earns smiles but never respect. This is the hidden danger of needing to be liked. The moment your value depends on the shifting opinions of others, you stop living as yourself. You lose your edges, your authenticity, your ability to stand firm. People may enjoy your company, but they will never truly rely on you. Because deep down, they know you're not anchored. You're drifting with the current of their approval. The Stoics warned us against this trap long ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The opinion of 10,000 men is worthless if none know the truth." What use is universal approval if it comes at the cost of truth? What use is being liked by everyone if no one respects the real you? A Stoic doesn't aim to be liked. He aims to live in accordance with reason and virtue. Sometimes that earns admiration, sometimes it sparks resentment, but either way, it commands respect. Because people may not always agree with you, but they cannot deny the presence of someone who stands firm in himself. The takeaway is simple. Authenticity may cost you approval, but it will always earn you dignity. To live seeking only to be liked is to fade into the background. To live seeking truth is to step into the foreground, where respect, not popularity, becomes your foundation. So let me ask you, which matters more to you, being liked or being respected? If your answer is respect, comment respect below. Because respect lasts long after approval fades, and the Stoic path calls us to live not as performers for the crowd, but as men of substance, anchored in truth. 5. Over-explaining. Every time you over-explain, you're not just giving reasons, you're asking for permission to exist. Picture this. Someone asks you for a favor you cannot give. Maybe they want you to cover extra work on short notice, or lend money you can't spare. You know the answer is no. But instead of stating it clearly, you scramble. You pile on excuses. I'm really busy, I already promised someone else, maybe next time. Hoping your reasons will shield you from disappointment or anger. And what happens? They press harder. They pick apart your reasons. They corner you into doing what you didn't want to do in the first place. Your over-explaining turned your boundary into an open negotiation. This is the hidden cost of explaining too much. It sends the signal that your decisions are flexible, that your no is really a maybe. The more you justify, the more others sense weakness. They learn that if they keep pushing, you'll bend. And in time, you start to resent them, not because they crossed your boundary, but because you never held it firm. The Stoics would cut through this illusion with one simple truth. Boundaries don't need decoration. Seneca and Marcus Aurelius lived by clarity. If something wasn't right, they didn't do it. If something wasn't true, they didn't say it. No elaborate justification, no pleading, no performance. A boundary defended with endless explanation is no boundary at all. It's an invitation to debate. Think about it. The strongest words are often the simplest. No, I can't. Period. No drama, no justification, no apologies. A single firm statement carries more power than paragraphs of defense. Because truth stands on its own. It doesn't need accessories to hold it upright. The takeaway is this. Stop weakening your boundaries by explaining them to people who were never entitled to an explanation in the first place. Your life, your choices, your energy, these are yours to guard. And when you choose to say no, let it stand like a wall, not like a door half open. So let me turn this to you. Have you ever caught yourself over-explaining only to watch your words used against you? If so, it's time to break the pattern. Keep it short, keep it clear, keep it firm. And if you agree that sometimes a simple no is stronger than a long speech, drop a like icon in the comments. Let it be your reminder, and ours, that boundaries don't need explanation. They only need courage. 6. Tolerating disrespect. No one is destroyed by one great wound. They're destroyed by 1,000 small cuts. Think about the little moments you've brushed aside. The jokes at your expense, disguised as humor. The friend who cancels on you again and again, without apology. The colleague who interrupts you in meetings, treating your voice as background noise. The partner who dismisses your feelings with a roll of the eyes. Each time you told yourself, it's not worth making a fuss. Each time you swallowed the sting to keep the peace. But over time, these small cuts accumulate, and before you realize it, you're bleeding out your self-respect. This is the danger of tolerating disrespect. Silence in these moments doesn't make you noble. It makes you complicit. What you allow, you teach. By accepting small violations, you train others to believe that you'll accept larger ones. Your passivity becomes permission. Seneca put it plainly, he who does not prevent a crime when he can encourages it. The same is true with disrespect. When you could speak up, when you could draw the line, and you choose not to, you are, in effect, encouraging more of the same. And eventually, you start resenting not only them but yourself for allowing it to happen. The Stoic answer is not to lash out in anger, but to draw boundaries with calm clarity. A firm, measured response to disrespect is not aggression. It's self-respect. It's the recognition that your dignity is not up for negotiation. You don't need to yell. You don't need to explain. Sometimes all it takes is saying, "That's not acceptable," and meaning it. The takeaway here is vital. You teach people how to treat you. If you tolerate jokes that cut too deep, they will keep cutting. If you allow constant cancellations, they'll keep devaluing your time. If you stay silent in the face of disrespect, you invite more of it. But the moment you set the boundary, the moment you show that your self-respect is non-negotiable, the dynamic changes. So let me ask you, how many small cuts have you endured in silence? How many times have you swallowed disrespect, convincing yourself it was nothing? If you've had enough, it's time to stop bleeding for the comfort of others. Comment enough below if you're ready to close the door on tolerating disrespect. Let it mark the end of the past and the beginning of a new standard. Because in the Stoic way of life, dignity is never optional. It is essential. When you look back at these 6 signs of being too nice, the pattern becomes undeniable. Always saying yes, apologizing for simply existing, avoiding conflict at any cost, living only for approval, over-explaining, and tolerating disrespect. None of these earn you honor. They only drain your strength, erode your dignity, and invite others to treat you as less than you are. The truth is harsh, but freeing. The world does not bow to the nice guy. It does not reward endless compliance or self-erasure. The world respects clarity, boundaries, and the quiet strength of a man who knows who he is and refuses to shrink for anyone. Stoicism teaches us that virtue is not about pleasing everyone. It is about living with integrity. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, none of them preached about being agreeable at all costs. They spoke of courage, of restraint, of self-respect, and that's the path you are called to walk. Not the path of Harold, who never said no until his body collapsed. Not the path of Ted, who was liked by all but respected by none. Not the path of Morgan, who tolerated disrespect until her spirit grew numb. But the Stoic path, the path where your yes means yes, your no means no, and your dignity is never up for trade. The takeaway is clear. Too much niceness is not virtue. It is surrender. And if you want respect, real, lasting respect, you must be willing to set boundaries that stand firm even when others push against them. So if you've seen yourself in Harold, Ted, or Morgan, let this be your turning point. Subscribe to True Stoic Way right now, because the road to freedom, dignity, and strength begins with one simple, powerful word: no. Closing manifesto, the Stoic way of respect and peace. We've come full circle. From the hidden roots of resentment, to the power of silence, to the dangers of being too nice, we've walked through 3 layers of human interaction that determine whether you are controlled by others or whether you live free. First, we saw that hatred often has little to do with you at all. Envy, gossip, misunderstandings, insecurity, rivalry, lack of recognition, these forces live inside other people, not inside you. Too often we've made the mistake of believing their coldness is a reflection of our worth. But the Stoic perspective reveals the truth. Their resentment speaks about them, not about you. Understanding this is the first shield: clarity. Second, we explored how to respond, not with frantic explanations, not with endless arguments, not with dangerous hope that toxic people will suddenly change, but with silence, strategic, disciplined, intentional silence. A silence that cuts the fuel to manipulation, breaks the cycle of reaction, and restores your psychological sovereignty. Silence is not weakness. It is strength under control. It is the Stoic art of refusing to hand your peace to those who thrive on chaos. And third, we confronted the shadow within, the tendency to be too nice, too agreeable, too eager to please. Because often, it isn't the enemy outside that robs us of respect, but our own failure to set boundaries. The inability to say no, the habit of apologizing for existing, the avoidance of conflict, the craving to be liked, the compulsion to over-explain, the tolerance of disrespect. These are not virtues. They are traps. And if we are not careful, they turn us into invisible men, liked by many but respected by none. This threefold journey, understanding the roots of hate, mastering the discipline of silence, and rejecting the weakness of excessive niceness, leads to one ultimate Stoic conclusion. True peace is not the absence of conflict. It is sovereignty of the mind. The storms outside will never stop. People will misunderstand you. Some will resent you. Others will try to manipulate you. And still others will exploit your kindness if you let them. But peace does not come from eliminating every storm. It comes from building an inner fortress so strong that no storm can shake it. Peace is knowing what belongs to you, your thoughts, your actions, your responses, and refusing to hand those over to anyone. This is the Stoic way. It does not promise an easy life, but it promises a strong one. A life where respect is earned not through pleasing everyone, but through living with clarity. A life where silence is not a void, but a weapon. A life where your dignity is guarded by boundaries no one can cross without your consent. So here's my invitation. If you found value in these truths, if they stirred something in you, do 3 things right now. 1. Like this video, not just for me, but to spread the Stoic message further, so others trapped in the noise can find the way out. 2. Comment your story. Share your experiences with envy, gossip, toxic silence, or the trap of being too nice. Because we grow stronger as a community, not in isolation. Your story might be the mirror someone else needs to see clearly. 3. And most importantly, subscribe to True Stoic Way. Because this isn't just a channel, it's a fellowship, a place where we learn, together, how to stand calm in chaos, strong in weakness, and dignified in a world that often forgets the meaning of respect. Remember this, the world will never stop testing you. But the Stoic way gives you the tools not just to survive, but to rise, to live with peace, with respect, and with sovereignty of the mind. Join us, walk the Stoic way, and never again mistake silence for weakness, kindness for surrender, or resentment for a reflection of your worth. Because you are stronger than the storm. And this is the path to peace.